He says everyone's talking about what's going on right now, blaming Russia for the coming food crisis. You as specialists would know that the crisis emerged from the times of the anti-pandemic measures, where some well-developed economies abused their monopoly power in terms of currency monopolies, talking about America, obviously, and the big banks that rule over us. They turned on the printing machine in the U.S. and printed $5.9 trillion. That's 38% of the entire money supply. They printed it over 2 years, which is roughly the sum of what was printed in the previous 40 years. You need to defend your civilization against the onslaught of this cancer of progressivism, liberalism, and globalist brainwashing. This is a life or death situation. No messing around. The prescription is 2 doses of InfoWars taken daily.
You're listening to The American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As you may be aware, if you are a regular viewer of InfoWars, we are in the state of total designed manufactured collapse at this very moment. And I really want to ask our liberal brothers and sisters, what convinced you, like what single event, what multiple events, just what happened in your life to convince you that everything that's happening right now was an act of God? What hurricane shut down global shipping for an entire year? What solar flare came from the sun and shut down elementary schools and forced your kid to Skype at home with their brain-dead teacher for 8 hours a day? I mean, was this natural? Was this an act of God? Or were every single thing that we're dealing with right now the result of decisions made by people who benefit from the misery it's causing you? Like, just what happened in your life? What event can you point me to go, see, there's nothing anybody could do? The only thing you could possibly point to would be COVID, which wouldn't exist at all if a bunch of psychopath, weapons manufacturers weren't messing with the genetic material of viruses to figure out how to, carve a little bit more taxpayer dollars out for genocide. Like, that wouldn't exist if you didn't have this military-industrial complex running everything. So just what happened that made you think that nothing could be controlled? That all of these things happening that are the direct results of policies that you supported are really just an act of God that you don't believe in, right? An act of nature. Oh, it's just climate change that's destroying the entire world. Are you really that stupid? I mean, honestly. Now, we do have at least one global leader that understands what's going on, is willing to actually explain it to the people. It's not Joe Biden. Sure as hell ain't Klaus Schwab. It's not Bill Gates or George Soros or Hillary Clinton or even Donald Trump. It is, believe it or not, Vladimir Putin. So let's go to a video of Vladimir Putin explaining how we got to this point in a way that we could only wish that our own politicians would explain things to us. Here he is, enemy of the world, Satan himself, Vladimir Putin. He says everyone's talking about what's going on right now, blaming Russia for the coming food crisis. You as specialists would know that the crisis emerged from the times of the anti-pandemic measures, where some well-developed economies abused their monopoly power in terms of currency monopolies, talking about America, obviously, and the big banks that rule over us. They turned on the printing machine in the U.S. and printed $5.9 trillion. That's 38% of the entire money supply. They printed it over 2 years, which is roughly the sum of what was printed in the previous 40 years. At the same rate, and in the Eurozone, they printed 2.5 trillion euro. They released this money into the economy and gave it out to people, which isn't bad per se. We utilized a similar tactic, he said. But we were very careful. It was sparingly done, and as such, didn't lead to a wave of inflation. Over there, the anti-pandemic measures were funded from budget deficits, which led to them buying up food supplies from global markets, where in the previous years, the U.S. was a net exporter of food. They are now a net importer of food, just like oil, by the way. They bought $17 billion more in food than they sold. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? Kind of worth knowing. What does that say? Well, they have exacerbated problems for developing and poor countries and closed their own problems off. This is the result of a monopoly on reserve currencies, dollars and euros. Of course, he's using this to set up the alternative currency that the BRICS countries are trying to do. But it's true what he's saying. Everything he's saying is true. This started the end of 2019. Beginning of 2020, then the anti-Russian sanctions made the situation worse. They made a bunch of mistakes in the energy sector. Gas prices went up.
Если, да, связаны с энергетикой, да, значит, наделали ошибок в сфере энергетики, поднялись цены на газ, а газ лежит в основе многих удобрений.
And access to gas is the foundation of many fertilizers. As fertilizers became more expensive, we've seen enterprises shut down, particularly in Europe, and food prices have skyrocketed further. And that's how it happened, folks. Not an act of God. Not something we couldn't control. And it's not even speculation. We know the decisions that were made and who made them. Maybe let's hold them to account for destroying the world. Maybe?
We are now living in the void, sliding towards collapse in the strange space between what we've known and what's to come. And right now, the most important thing to remember is don't panic. Stay calm, because now is the time that we must get our bearings and steer the ship onto a safe, sound course. There is nothing stopping we the people from making our own rules and building our own society. All we got to do is survive the crash. And right now, we still have time to prepare. The world fiat currency system is racing towards zero. It's time to convert it into hard assets now, including food, water, and survival gear to keep us strong and at the ready. Go to preparetoday.com for the essentials: storable foods, water filtration, first aid, power, and more at preparetoday.com.